Hi, I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. The South Carolina Supreme Court is overturning Alec Murdaugh's double murder conviction. A jury found Murdaugh guilty of murdering his wife and son in 2021. But the state Supreme Court just found a court clerk interfered with the jury by attacking Murdaugh's credibility. ABC's Andrew Dimbert and ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Villolona are here with more on what that means for the case now. Andrew, what's the latest here?
Well, this is a stunning decision here. And of course, this trial captivated all the minds and watchers on streamers and Netflix with the documentary. This is a very high-profile case here. The South Carolina Supreme Court now throwing out Alex Murdaugh's murder conviction and ordering a new trial. Murdaugh was convicted in 2023 of killing his wife Maggie and son Paul, but now the state Supreme Court unanimously deciding to toss the conviction, the high court finding that the county clerk, Becky Hill, improperly influenced jurors during the high-profile trial. According to the court's opinion just released, Hill made comments like, "Don't be fooled" by Murdaugh's defense and told them to watch his behavior closely while he testified. Murdaugh's attorneys have long argued that jury tampering tainted the verdict. However, a lower court had previously denied their request for a new trial, a decision now reversed by the state's highest court. But Murdaugh is not a free man here. He won't be walking out of prison anytime soon. The former attorney also pleaded guilty to stealing around $12 million from his clients, and he's currently serving a 40-year federal sentence, but still looks like on the murder trial he's going to get a new trial here, according to the state Supreme Court, reversing that conviction.
Bernard.
Okay. So he is still in prison, 40 years in the federal court system, but some people are very upset about it. Let's keep going.
What do you make of this decision?
This is definitely a huge blow for the prosecution, but this is not one that I'm surprised of what happened, because when you're talking about fundamental fairness, when you're talking about that every person is entitled to a fair trial and that jurors should not be impacted by outside comments or things that are going out outside of the courtroom. For example, this is why the jury was actually sequestered, to try to prevent their verdict from being influenced from outside factors. So I think it was the right decision because the verdict was impacted by comments that was made by Ms. Hill.
And Bernardo, Murdaugh will remain in prison due to those separate convictions on financial crimes. So what are the next steps for him?
So the next steps for him is that the prosecution office will have to determine whether they are going to retry him, because since he's already serving a federal sentence of 40 years, and because of his age, it's technically life that he's serving, it may be the decision of the prosecutor's office not to retry him. But given that it is a homicide trial, the prosecutor, I believe, should be retrying him. So next steps in terms of a trial is going to look completely different than the trial that we saw years ago, because the Supreme Court has already ruled that a lot of that financial crime evidence should not go forward in a new trial. So we're talking about new jurors and also a new presentation of the evidence that can impact a new trial.
All right, it'll be an interesting one. Andrew Dimbert, Bernardo Villolona, thank you.
Absolutely crazy situation, y'all. Let's go over into this next video and see what else we can find out about it. Absolutely wild. So let's get over into
it. Do you think in this new trial that Alec Murdaugh, that his lawyers will opt to put him on the stand once again?
That's a great question. And let's just go back a little bit, because we don't even know if there's going to be a new trial. I'm going to go on the record saying there will be. Everybody who could have any influence weighing in on demanding a new trial and trying him a second time has already said they will, regardless of who gets elected in, who's out, et cetera. So let's just go on the idea that the prosecutors will, in fact, ask for a new trial. Will they do something different? Maybe. And I only say that, Nicole, because I thought he was very compelling on the stand. I actually thought he did a really good job on the stand. But then Becky Hill came in and said to the jurors, watch his body language and make sure you listen closely. That really diminished what he did on the stand. So I don't know if Dick Harpootlian and his gang, Jim Griffin, et cetera, are going to suggest he take the stand again. But I will tell you what won't end up in the next trial, and that is the bulk of the financial information that they spent, I don't know, 12 plus hours going over all of his financial crimes. They just loaded that stuff on. And in the jurisprudence speak of courts, that's called prejudicial. And they agreed, the Supreme Court agreed that all that testimony about his financial crimes should not have actually been brought into the murder trial, at least not all of it, maybe some of it, but not all of it.
Okay, and so again, you just mentioned.
I mean, it makes sense to me because none of that had to do with the case that they were trying. They were going after him for being a murderer of his wife and son. They weren't going after him for financial crimes. Maybe if some of them have him like paying for stuff associated with the murders, and yeah, you can use his financial records. But now you're just feeding that and telling the jury that how bad he is, and they already got an image of him in their minds. Let's keep going.
What the Supreme Court agreed with. This went all the way up to the South Carolina Supreme Court, which in its ruling acknowledged that, quote, time, money, and effort was expended for what did turn out to be a lengthy trial. So again, we are assuming that this does in fact go to trial a second time. Do you think there will be just as much, time, effort, and money expended on a second trial, if not more potentially, the second time around?
Well, it's going to be hard, right? Because now voir dire has to include, did you follow the last trial and the trial result? And that's going to be tricky, but it's not impossible. I always say if you can get a jury for O.J. Simpson, you can get a jury for anybody, regardless of that jury. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to spend a fair bit of money doing a lot of voir dire and getting the right jury in place, somebody who it doesn't mean that they can't have seen anything. You're never going to find people like that, or rarely. And they might not be your peers if they live under a rock like that. It's really the standard of whether they can be fair and whether they can take in all the information and be fair. So I think they're going to be able to find a jury, but now it's a matter of how long will the trial be? Because a lot of that 12 hours of financial testimony, that's going to be out. They're not going to be able to bring that stuff in. And if he doesn't take the stand, I can't remember how long he was on the witness stand for, but it was long, that you can also cut those days off as well. But I mean, what a fascinating turn of events at a time when many of us were saying, are you kidding me? This clerk should never have done that. This is unfair. This is a travesty of justice. And yet the judge said, nope, we can move on. This is all curative.
Yeah, that certainly did surprise a lot of people. Ashley, I want to go back to something you were talking.
Now, I wonder if the judge should be held responsible because she let it happen. She let it go on, even though it was obvious to some people. I didn't follow the case too much, but it was obvious to some people that it wasn't being a fair trial, and that's the whole point of the United States government and the jury system is for it to be fair. But let's keep going.
Talking about the seating a jury, being that he was found guilty, being that this trial did get so much publicity. I mean, how difficult do you think it will be to seat a fair jury?
It's hard. I'm not going to lie. Look, we've all lived through Casey Anthony. I've said it before, OJ. In the advent of cable news and the internet and social media, a lot of information is shared these days. And true crime podcasting, like Drop Dead Serious, is very popular. So a lot of people, shameless plug, are really following this genre. But it doesn't mean that you can't be fair. I've volunteered for jury duty. I am that person. I have often said I could be very fair, even though I'm in the business of true crime. It just takes the right people, and it's not a matter of having seen it. It's a matter of reading their signs and actually doing a little investigating on the jurors when you're doing voir dire to figure out if you've got somebody who truly can put aside what they have heard and seen and be fair and just assess the evidence that they're given in that trial.
Thank you for watching.
Absolutely crazy situation that's happening right now, but a lot of people expected it to happen, or a lot of people felt it should happen. Now let's get over into the AI breakdown just to see if we can bring all this together. So as we know, on May 13th, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court unanimously overturned the double murder conviction and life sentence of disgraced former attorney Alex Murdoaugh. The state's highest court ruled that Murdoaugh was denied a fair trial due to the shocking jury tampering and external influence by the county clerk, Becky Hill. and the South Carolina Attorney General Office has vowed to aggressively seek and retrial as soon as possible. So the Supreme Court ruled that the former clerk of court, Becky Hill, inappropriately influenced the jury to secure a guilty verdict in an effort to boost sales for her self-authored books, Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdoaugh murder. She did it for money. Not surprising. We got the improper comments, so Hill told juries to watch his body language closely and explicitly suggested his testimony could not be trusted, removing his presumption of innocence before deliberation begins. The justices also held the original trial judge allowed the prosecutors to go far too deep into his unrelated financial crimes, causing unfair prejudice among the jurors. So despite the overturned murder charge, he will not be released. He is currently serving decades-long sentence, 27 years in state prison and 40 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to stealing millions of dollars from his law firm and former clients. South Carolina Attorney General stated his office will retry Murdoaugh for the 2021 murder of his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, at their house, at their hunting estate. He resigned, subsequently pleaded guilty to multiple criminal charges, including perjury, obstruction, and misconduct in the offing stem from her actions during and after the 2023 trial. Wow. So the timeline of the whole saga, let's just run through this real quickly. On June 7, 2021, we had Maggie and Paul are found shot to death near their dog kennel at the family's 17,000-acre estate. He is forced out of his law firm for siphoning millions of dollars from clients. Days later, he orchestrates a botched roadside assisted suicide shooting to secure a life insurance payout for his surviving son. Whoa, I didn't even know that. Following a highly publicized 6 weeks trial, a jury finds him guilty of 2 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life term. So his defense team filed for a new trial presenting evidence of Hill's jury tampering. Hill's book is pulled from publication due to plagiarism and ethics investigation, and the South Carolina Supreme Court officially vacates the murder convictions and orders a completely new trial. Now, the biggest question, like they were saying before, will they actually go through and retrial them? How long it would take? What exact evidence do they have? Because I don't think they had any DNA or anything like this. But what exact evidence are they going to bring up? How long would it take, and how much money are they going to spend to do it? Because remember, at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers who are paying the money. But let me know your thoughts on that situation, y'all. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said.